I'm Kevin Davis. This is the Catholic Family Podcast, and I'm very happy to be joined by this lovely lady who was on the show a really long time ago. I joked with her beforehand. I was like, I think it was like two babies ago, but I guess it was only one. It was only one. But Rosie is here from the Crunchy Catholic, crunchycatholic.com. We're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about what she offers over there. Pretty cool stuff. But we're going to mainly focus on a topic that my wife is really head over heels in love with, in a good way. It's actually a really complicated topic, and that is minimalism. And I know for a fact there are going to be people who hear that word and they're going to be like, "Ugh, minimalism." And I know that my mother is one of them. She hears the word and she thinks that means whitewashed walls and no furniture. And I don't think that is what we're going to talk about today. And if it is, then I don't like that. But I think it's more of the idea of, what can we survive with? How do we have a happier life with fewer things? And then I talk about all the time on the channel how we need to think about consumerism, how everything we consume, everything we buy, everything we have, doesn't mean you shouldn't have it, but we should really consider it. And I think that's the whole globalist consumeristic failure, is that we don't. We just buy it because it's like, oh, that's this. You don't really consider it. You see it on Amazon. I'm going to click. And anyway, and so I'm really interested in this topic. My wife is very, very interested in this topic. And Rosie, I very much appreciate you coming on. So I guess I'll let you take over and tell me what exactly you want to say about minimalism. Where to begin, I suppose.
Yeah, thank you. So minimalism, as you mentioned, is becoming such a, well, in some senses like a taboo topic. In other senses, people are raving and ranting about it. And I'm kind of here to bring like a happy medium between total clutter, chaos, and total interest, Instagram, Pinterest worthy minimalism, where you see, like you mentioned, the white walls and the no furniture and no color and all that stuff. Obviously, we have color in our home. I was joking to my husband before recording this. I said, oh, I need to get down and pick up that room since I'm talking about decluttering. And I was thinking to myself as I'm picking up, I'm like, am I a hypocrite that I'm having to clean when I'm here to talk about decluttering? But the whole point is that it was very easy to clean because we don't have clutter. We have kids. I have 4 kids. My oldest is 6. My youngest is 2 months old. So when I was first researching this topic, it felt like everyone who had advice, strategies, courses, whatever about decluttering and about minimalism was always like, no kids or 2 kids that are school age. And I just thought to myself, that is such a different season of life than I am in. And, Kevin, you can relate too. I know you have 3 very young ones. So having this completely clutter-free home is not practical unless you want to have your kids have a miserable childhood where they don't own anything. And that's not what I want. So I started researching where's the happy medium? And, like I said, recently it's becoming such a trending thing. So Marie Kondo, I don't know if you remember her, years back, yeah. She was the queen of decluttering. She became a verb basically, where people would say I'm going to Marie Kondo my home before Christmas. Marie Kondo said, I can't keep that shirt because it's, a once a year kind of thing. And then Marie Kondo had kids, and a magazine article came out where it said, Marie Kondo admits decluttering or minimalism is impossible with kids. And all the moms sighed a big sigh of relief, where we said, wow, okay, striving for perfectionism and failing to hit whatever I'm aiming for doesn't make me a bad mom. It just means I need to set my bar lower, but not set the bar at all, because I think that's what we all get caught up in. We get very overwhelmed. We say our kids are young, therefore it's impossible. We're in a season, wait till they're older. For me and my personality and my need for some order, that wasn't working. And so looking back at before I was a mom, my room, my personal room before I was married, was spotless. I just was the squeaky clean person. And then you become a parent, and these kids, it is not in their nature to be squeaky clean. I mean, it's, how quickly a room can look like a hurricane legitimately pass through. Incredible. It's insane.
It's a skill. It's a skill.
It is. I'm that is mastery right there. So for the first few years of parenthood, I kind of just threw my hands up and was like, what's the use? And it was very overwhelming to me. The first kid, it was manageable because you have all the time in the world. You're picking up after them. Oh, they are having so much fun with all their toys and all their books, and you're picking up and you're like, this is my job, is to pick up after them. And then you have another kid and you're like, wait, that can't be my job because I also need to feed this baby and do all these things and cook dinner for my husband and wash the laundry and maybe have some time for self-care or downtime because I'm going nuts if I'm cleaning all the time. And that's when I went down my rabbit hole of like, there's got to be a better way. I can't be picking up all the time. And that was when, I'd say right after my third kid, actually. So shortly after our last podcast, which was a year and a half ago, that is when I was so fed up and I was like, enough is enough. This picking up constantly is out of hand. And I don't think it's how God wants me to be spending my time. Like, we're called to raise these kids to sainthood, and I'm spending 23 out of the 24 hours a day picking up toys. Or so it feels like. And I just thought that can't be right. So I started doing all this research and was very alarmed at how, just like statistically, how out of hand it is in our generation of the consumerism and how many toys our kids own and how many books they own and how many knickknacks they own, and coming home from every little party or every little festivity with all the little trinkets and the little goodie bags and so many things that are constantly coming into our home. And, you know, I have this perspective. I think of almost everything this way. I'm always thinking about what the enemy loves. And he loves when we are overwhelmed by clutter. He is like dead set on the destruction of families right now. We can feel it. It's so strong in the world right now. And honestly, I feel like clutter is part of that because it makes us snappy. It makes us not have time for prayer. It makes us, you know, kind of like blaming maybe our spouse and just getting frustrated with ourselves. It's not a good vibe in the home to be living in clutter. Unless you're someone who doesn't mind it. And that's just a whole nother topic. That's fine. No judgment. It's not me.
Yeah, but and it's true. And that's me. I'm a phlegmatic, and many parts of me, I like. It depends on actually the surface. Some things I just can't. I have to have it clean for whatever reason. I don't know why. But most things, yeah, it's kind of like, oh yeah, you know, my phlegmatic brain's like la la la. But I can tell the difference. So like I can just shut it off and it's like whatever. But if my workspace is clean, I do think better. I have a cleaner mind. And if I walk in the door when I come home from work, or if I wake up in the morning, the kitchen's clean, it is like a breath of like, oh, whew, you know, that's nice. I can live with it being dirty, but I can tell the difference. There certainly is a difference, and it really is. It's an amazing thing. It really hit me, this whole topic, also fairly recently, maybe a year ago or a couple of years ago. I don't remember it, but I was really thinking about it because I thought about Christmas, and we went to a friend's house and they had toy after toy after toy. I mean, just so many toys, a whole room covered in, like, really covered in toys. And I'm sure people have seen this or they've had it themselves. And it's like, that's fine. I mean, again, I don't mean to judge that. I mean, I get it. I really get it. But that was my thought. I was like, okay, it makes sense because if you get them one big toy for their birthday, and I'm going a little bit down the hole, but I mean, if you get one thing and then you get them another thing for Christmas, but then you have two kids, and then you get them one thing and then another thing and then another thing and another thing, and it just grows and grows and grows. And if you're not getting rid of things, if you're not also saying, okay, if I get this, then I have to get rid of this, it just becomes a total nightmare. And I remember that part of my childhood up until a certain point, I felt like, I think my mom was also all the time saying, can't you guys also help pick up off the floor? And it was also part of my childhood, having to go around and pick up after I'm the second of 10. So I had to also go around and pick up off the kids. And so even in my childhood was kind of like, why am I always cleaning up after? And part of that's just part of it is life. But again, that's why I'm really happy to be doing this. And I totally agree with you that it is also a godly thing. It is a godly thing again, and I know you're going to get deeper into it, but again, clutter, I agree with you. I think it does lead to bad things. So cleanliness is next to godliness, right?
Absolutely.
Also, by the way, I have to talk about, before Rosie continues, unfortunately, her phone wasn't working, so that's why the connection and the sound's not great. So we apologize for that. It's just how we tried it. For some reason, it was glitching and wasn't working. The computer works, just doesn't sound or look as good. So apologies for that. It is how it is. Anyone who's watched us for a long time knows that's just sometimes how it goes. But fortunately, we're still able to pull it off. So Rosie, please continue.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for the little disclaimer. We had such a beautiful image with my phone quality, but we had to go to the laptop to have non-glitchy connections. So speaking of the faith aspect and the godliness, I have a scripture verse that I wanted to read that I feel like is so fitting, from Matthew chapter 6, we've all heard of it, I'm sure. Lay not up to yourselves treasures on earth where the rust and moth consume and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up to yourselves treasures in heaven where neither the rust nor moth doth consume and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where thy treasure is, there is thy heart also. And then a few verses later, it goes on to say, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will sustain the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Mammon meaning worldly riches or worldly interests. So it's not to say that owning anything of the world or having interest in anything of the world is bad, of course. But I think the scripture is a pretty good warning of saying not to let it consume your life. And if you kind of just reflect on your time spent and say, truly picking up toys, and it's not all toys, it can be so many other things. Maybe you have a gazillion kitchen gadgets, you don't need it all, books, clothes, paper clutter, digital clutter, like you're not on top of your emails. It really can go on and on and on. If you reflect on your time spent and you can assess that your time wasted on maintaining clutter is taking away from time that you could be spending in prayer or spiritual reading or even just general personal development or just spending quality time with your kids, spending quality time with your spouse. I was looking at, how does this reflect in Catholicism, like the Catholic family life? Because of course, both of us having those values. And I was thinking the biggest values in a typical Catholic family, quality time with each other, family time, spouse being home, and it's like a really big deal when the husband comes home. All of those values are better supported when you have a clutter-free home. And then on the flip side, when it is cluttered, it's all very hard to put those values first and foremost.
So what you're saying, it is a traditionalist value to be minimalist. Shameless plug. Here we go.
Or steak, Bud Light or beer, CNN or the traditionalists. Choose wisely, my friend.
That is our new channel coming out, as you see, January 1st, The Traditionalists. It will be pretty much, as you see, traditional Catholic men talking about current news and current affairs, politics, social things, etc. Probably not minimalism, though actually that would be great. I would love to have on. We should do a round table with the men about minimalism. Actually, that would be fantastic. See, already getting good ideas for the show. Anyway, yes, and again, it's something I thought about a lot after having named the channel The Traditionalists. It's like, okay, what does that mean? And I think that to me, it means, as you see in the logo, God, family, country. And I think it also means, you're right, living a virtuous life and leaving. And I think I do think part of that is clean, living a clean life. And again, I'm not a clean person, and I'm someone who totally has come to my house, and you'll see I got pictures all over. My living room looks like an Irish pub because I just love it. I get that from my mom. It's honest, but you still see in Bavaria is a perfect example. Upper Bavaria, where I live, the people care so much for their homes. There's a real pride in how their homes look to everyone around them, and it spreads. And so our entire countryside is perfect. You almost never see a house that's run down. You don't see junk cars in the backyard and stuff. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's really cultural. And it shows you that it really can be. And I guarantee you, not every single person is a melancholic. So it's a lesson that you can absolutely have to do these things and learn that you take that pride on yourself and say, hey, I can't be the only one not doing this. I know that's a little different because it's your own home, but I think that pride in it, be like, hey, I want my home to look as good as it possibly can. And it's important.
Absolutely. And I think, it takes all kinds of people. Of course, your spouse and yourself aren't always going to be like-minded. My husband definitely doesn't tend to be as drawn to the squeaky clean principles that I do. However, he does see that when things are cluttered or messy, our kids are just such little hurricanes that it's like, if I decide to own more things and have the surfaces covered with things, like before kids, all my surfaces had, 3 special little, maybe a statue, maybe a plaque, maybe a photo frame. And now I just don't really mess with much of any of that kind of stuff because they knock it over, it collects dust, it's more cleaning, it gets, it's a problem. And it's a mindset that you take on to say, is that worth it? Or am I just in a season where having a clear space right there is better than constantly getting on the kids. Don't touch the picture frame, don't touch this, don't touch that. And some might argue that, well, you need to be more strict with your kids and just tell them not to touch those things. That is something that I talked about a lot in some of my podcasts. I have my own separate podcast called the Crunchy Catholic Podcast. And I've mentioned this scenario many times where I used to have these cubbies, kind of like these homeschool cubbies back here, that were in our living room, and they all had different things in them. And the kids were constantly pulling them out, dumping them, just scattering everything across the house. And it took me a very long time to finally say, why have I not just gotten rid of those? I need to just put those somewhere where they can't access them and just let it be an empty space. And that's something huge that, the professional minimalists and everyone talk about, is being okay with empty space, because we tend to think that we need to utilize every nook and cranny of our home, when really having something empty is fine. Our living room, we have 2 couches, our TV stand has drawers and shelves, and I don't even put anything in it because it's just more maintenance. And that's it. There's one small basket of tiny toys and a little like play carpet that they can sit on. And for the rest of the toys and things that they play with, those belong in other parts of the house, because the living room, I try to have my safe haven. I'm just like, I just need this room to not stay clean, but to be easy to clean. And that's a huge tip, is like being clutter free and taking on a minimalistic mindset doesn't mean that your house is always spotless. For goodness sakes, we're in the dead of winter here. I have 4 very young kids. They're always home. It gets very messy here. But there's a big difference between messy, dirty, and cluttered. Those are 3 different things. And things being dirty, such as your windows are never clean, there's dust everywhere, there's, hairballs if you have pets collecting under the couches. If it's dirty everywhere, that is enough to make a mom very insane. And so that was when I went down my rabbit hole of clutter. I was like, I can't even clean the dirtiness because I'm so busy picking up the messiness because it's so cluttered. So it's like this hierarchy, Sorry, did you have a thought
You
there?
make a great point about how much easier it is to clean with less things on the surface. So I clean our house. I am actually a professional cleaner, literally. I don't know if I'm not always the best at it, but I've had to learn how to be a cleaner. And so we have guest houses above us, our guests' apartments, and so I have to clean them when the guests check out, etc. And for a while, the lady before us, she really had this stuff, quite a lot of stuff over the place, and you had to literally pick it up every time and dust under it. And eventually I talked to my in-laws. I'm like, hey, can we just get rid of most of this stuff? And they were fine with it. They were great about it. And we got rid of most of the stuff, and it was so much easier to clean. I could absolutely ascribe to this, that it actually, it sounds insane. You really think exactly as you said. It's like, oh boy, but you're going to have that space, what about the space on the shelf here that's going to make it look empty? It's like, actually, it takes you a minute to get used to it because it's different, it's new, but it's like, oh no, actually it looks pretty good. It looks fine. It's really, I can absolutely attest to that. Yeah.
Yeah, or even just having something really simple, like one little fake plant, instead of like a whole stack of books that the kids can constantly pull down, just having everything be very easy to maintain. So, I have kind of a principle for each room of our house, is like, I should be able to clean it as messy as it can possibly get with my kids. I should be able to clean it in no more than like 10 minutes is kind of my threshold. And our playroom, which is also my older 2 kids' bedroom, it's like their bedroom, the playroom. It's kind of just the catch-all downstairs here in the basement. I won't show it to you right now because it's pretty messy, but it's not dirty. And it gets catastrophic. And whenever I get, just up to here with frazzleness over it, I say, you know what, set a timer. Let's overhaul it together. I try to have them help me. And I very often, it takes less than 10 minutes to clean it because there's a place for everything and there's really not too much stuff in there. So if it ever gets to a point where there is too much stuff, for example, if there's puzzle pieces everywhere and you're like, well, where do all these go? Or if there's these little, there's all these little new things coming out, especially forewarning to everyone as you're going into Christmas time, and you're looking at all of these fun things on Amazon, drawing your attention, anything that requires like multiple pieces, just tread with caution. Because for us, I keep all of those things out of reach. And that is such a huge tip that I would have for moms who are feeling overwhelmed with their clutter is like anything that's a puzzle, anything, we have like the ABCs that all go onto this thing, and it's really fun to do, but if it's out all the time, then it's just never going to serve its purpose, because you have an A here and a B here and a C in the backyard, and it's like, what is the point of owning this toy? It's not able to be used how it was intended to be used. So really just assessing your home and saying, how can I make this easier to maintain? A, start with the clutter. And then B, start with like systems that make things easier to maintain so that it can be easily tidied up. And then C, now you can actually start cleaning things. You can actually scrub that baseboard now and then, or take care of the dog hairballs under the couch, because you're not spending the whole day picking things up. It's such a mindset you have to take on. And in the beginning, it was really hard to just shift that all by myself, because we don't like change. Like, our brain does not like change. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. We don't know what to expect. And our brain by nature is literally wired to keep us comfortable. It's wired to keep things the same. That's why it's hard to take on a new workout routine or a new diet or meet new people or do new routines, wake up at a different time, go to bed earlier. It's hard because our brain just wants everything to stay the same. So when it comes to clutter, it has to take like a really good kick in the end to get started with it all, because it's not comfortable. It's not normal. And so I would recommend to people to start listening to inspiring content. There's actually, this would be fitting with the traditionalists, is the minimalists. They're literally called the minimalists. It's two guys, and they like kind of coined the term minimalism. I think they started their journey a few decades ago. Like, they've been putting content out for a very long time. I'm pretty sure all started, one of their moms maybe passed away and they were going through like her storage unit or something like that. And it was just insane how much stuff she owned. And he just said, I don't want this to be my legacy. Like, I don't want my kids resenting me for how much stuff of mine they have to go through when I'm gone. And that's something I always think about. Like, when I moved out of the house and got married, I had all these Tupperwares of things that my mom had saved and gave me to, move on to my new life. And I'll be honest, most of it is now gone. I got rid of it, and my mom might have mixed feelings about that, but I'm just like, it's not serving any purpose. All it is going to be is something for my kids to go through when I'm gone. Like, what if I don't ever have to access it, then I'm not using it. So if you're not using it and it's not like incredible sentimental value, there's obviously some things that fall within that category. They're worth keeping because of their sentimental value, but you have to put a limit on it, and also bear in mind how much space you actually have in your home, and bear in mind that it even takes up mental space in your mind to own things. People will say, well, if I'm not even having to maintain it, it's in a storage unit, out of sight, out of mind. Well, it's not out of sight, out of mind. First of all, you're paying for a storage unit, or even if it's like a friend's garage, whatever, it's still stuff that you own and you don't need to. And it is actually taking up a space in your mind to have to just think about that you still own things that are not under your roof. I could go on and on and on. I'm like, almost to a point where I used to get angry about how much stuff we own because of how much it took away from the joy in life.
Well, and I guess, I assume, like, if it were me, I would be afraid of doing it, right? Actually think, okay, then obviously, because it sounds like a monumental task. For us, not so much now, because we'll talk about that a bit later, that Ina did it, my wife did it, but it still kind of is, because when you have a bunch of children and you get new clothes in, okay, what do you do with the old ones? And there is a monumental task ahead of you, I suppose. But I suppose, how do you get around that idea of thinking like, I can't. Look, I don't have time now. How am I going to do this big project of decluttering? How am I going to spend the time? And I guess that's, how do you pitch that to someone? How do you say, yeah, it is a lot, but it is kind of an investment, I suppose.
Absolutely. It is such an investment. There's a quote, I think it's Benjamin Franklin, a minute planned is an hour earned. And correct me if I'm wrong. Do you know who that's by?
I don't know who that's by. I know the quote.
One of the founding fathers or presidents or someone important, but
Benjamin Franklin has half the quotes out there. So he's a good guess. Yeah.
50% odds. It's a good quote, because when we are spending all our time maintaining this clutter, and it's taking over our life, and I know it sounds so daunting to take care of it, but like you said, it is an investment. Once you're taking care of it, you're buying back time for yourself in the future to do other things, and you're kind of building a habit. So I highly recommend people first start with the mindset. Like if they currently don't feel motivated to go through their home and declutter, but they know they want to, then they need to listen to some things to kind of like put the fire in them. And so that's why I said the minimalists, they are a great resource. There's also a podcast called The Maximized Minimalist, The Maximized Minimalist. And she's a mom of littles who like fully takes on decluttering and minimalism. I am not like minimalism is my tagline by any means. My pillars are like faith, motherhood, natural living, and with that, like personal development mindset. But minimalism and decluttering like fully supports all of that. It was like I couldn't even pursue those endeavors because of the clutter. I couldn't even pursue being a fun and happy and involved mom because of the clutter. I couldn't pursue homeschooling when I decided that was what we wanted to do because of the clutter. And I've had some people tell me, you know, homeschooling is kind of a controversial thing. People who want to send their kids to a great Catholic school, totally fine. I went to a Catholic school. I loved it. I just right now am choosing to homeschool for various reasons. And some people have said like, I could never homeschool because when my kids are at school is when I clean. And I thought to myself, man, I like that bums me out to hear because it just seems like cleaning is more important than time with your kids. And I know there's a happy medium. Trust me, when my kids are out of the house for some reason, like my husband takes them to run an errand, I'm so productive. I'm like, wow, I just did like 7 days worth of stuff in a half hour. So I totally get it. But at the same time, to have them gone all day for 5 days a week so you can have a clean home should lead you to ask yourself, well, why is my home taking 40 hours a week to clean? It shouldn't take 40 hours a week to clean. And, you know, maybe you should own less stuff. And again, everyone's standards and preferences are different. But if someone is listening to this and they're feeling it in them, like, yeah, I need to own less. I know I need to declutter. That's where listening to those things is a great start. There's also a book called Hunt, Gather, Parent. I am one to like check out books from the library and I do a really good like skim and I kind of get the gist because I just, you know, limited time as a busy mom.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah.
Seriously, or audiobooks, you know, whatever I can do to bypass the pages. So the gist that I got from that book was amazing. This mom here in America literally went on like a tour around the world to other countries. That'd be awesome to have that kind of money. But anyway, she went on this tour to other countries specifically to do like a case study of other families and their lifestyles because she thought to ourselves, what are we doing so differently here in America? Goodness, she had an acronym called WEIRD, and it was like something about owning too much stuff. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was very eye-opening to say, why are we doing things so different? And of course, you're not in America, so I don't know which one you fall under. But when she was touring these other countries, the difference of these families' day-to-day lives versus ours was, I mean, kind of heartbreaking. So the comparison was like here in America, a big tendency is, you know, here's a tablet so mom can cook dinner. Here's a show so mom can do yard work. Here's, you know, a little game on the iPad so mom can put your sister to sleep for her nap or something. And it's just something that we so strongly rely on, not to even mention all the toys. I mean, the irony of here's a show so I can clean your toys because your toys that I bought for you to play with are not serving their purpose because you're too overwhelmed by them. So now I have to give you a show so I can clean your toys. And it makes you think like, this is insanity. And then the other countries that she went to, the kids, they didn't have, you know, show, screens, tablets, all the toys that us Americans have. They were helping their mom cook dinner, or they were helping their mom do yard work, or they were helping watch the other siblings so that mom could get the one sibling to sleep. And I know there's such a happy medium. We are not screen free. We are not toy free, but it's just something to be aware of, not falling into the one extreme, to rely on these screens and these toys being so high in number that they're no longer serving their purpose. There's a study of kids who literally do so much better. It was a study that Harvard or someone did, and putting kids in a room with a whole bunch of toys, it was like 26 toys or something, versus putting kids in a room with like 4 toys. And every single time the kids played with the 4 toys longer than the 26 toys. Those numbers are a little off. I don't remember exactly, but
we saw that we went on a trip and we still, the toys one is still a bit hard. That's one we still work on. It's kind of it's a slower work in progress, I think, because it's harder. It's easier to get rid of your things. I think it's harder to get rid of the things that you think your kids really need. But I mean, we went on a vacation to Italy, and Ina was, this was right, especially I think it was right when she was doing your course, maybe right after, and she brought with I think we had 2 little cars for my 2-year-old son and 1 book for my daughter, and that was it. And they played better together in that vacation than they ever had in their life, and even still, they've never been so friendly with each other. They've never played better, and you could just tell there was I don't know, their minds were freer. I mean, I was really surprised. Like I did not expect that. I think I even told my wife, I was like, yeah, come on, that's not going to be enough. They're going to be bored. And no, they totally weren't. It just meant that the 1 book was really delved into, and they really appreciated every little corner of that book. And the cars were, they were written on every single surface, and it was much more imagination, and they played with each other outside, etc. And I think that is totally true, that we have that wrong. We really think our children's happiness is based on what they have, and it's so not true. And I think that I think we're one of maybe the only generation ever, maybe the one before us as well, a few before us, that think that way, that think of, well, I have to give them things, not to give them time. And that's exactly, that's what you're saying too, that I mean, your time, and anyone who has children knows this, if you actually try it. I mean, we forget it so easily because, I don't know, because the devil, I don't know why we forget it so easily, because the children, they don't need things. They just need us. They really need us. They need our attention. They need our time. If you give a child 20 minutes of your undivided attention, that is worth, you could have no toys. I think if you did that every day, give them a pen and a paper, there's rocks outside. That's how I grew up. Come on, I grew up before there were, okay, we had a TV, I said, but we didn't have phones and stuff. And it was like, yeah, hey, go outside. That was it. And we'd come back when it was dark. It was the truth, and it was such a nice life. And it's like, why are we messing this up for our children? We're overthinking it, giving them too much.
Yeah, it makes you angry, honestly. And I mean, I was getting emotional thinking about you sharing, when Ina picked the very few toys to bring on vacation. I remember she shared that with me. And, maybe it's because I just had a baby a couple months ago, but I'm almost teary-eyed thinking about how so many moms are missing the point. They don't realize how much they can simplify it and how much easier and lighter it would make their life, and that their kids don't need it. And when I look back at my kids, I mean, they're growing so fast. My daughter, she's 6.5, and the number of times that she's asked me, like in her lifetime, to play, imaginary something with her, like little figurines or little woodsies or whatever. And I reflect back and I think of how I used to always say no, because there was always a mess to clean. And that was just all I could think about, was the mess that needed to be cleaned before I could play with her. And I've come a long ways. Now I'm a lot more intentional to say, you know what, this 20 minutes, like you said, the undivided attention is what they are going to go to bed thinking about. Like that is going to be the highlight of their day, was that they had mom or dad's undivided attention. And it's sad that we buy all these toys, and it's just so ironic. Like it's literally taking away from the quality of their life, and they don't realize that. So it's up to us to realize that. And you're so right. Our childhood, I cannot even tell you, if you say, what were your top favorite toys as a kid? No idea. I don't remember. But some of my top favorite memories is going out back with my sister with a notebook and pen and playing store and writing out a receipt, or making pretend newspapers and going around the neighborhood and delivering them to our neighbors. It was always like something creative that we did.
I built board games. I remember building board games. I'd get a cardboard box and I'd make my own, and they were terrible, obviously, but it doesn't matter. It's not like I'm not going to be selling them. I mean, so it's so true, and it is. And climbing trees, getting dirty, and obviously you can go too far with that too. But I mean, generally it is. And I think you're right. It's so sad because, parents just want the best for their children. There's no ill intentions at all. It's not. No one who gives their child a toy is like, here, I'm going to give this to you because they don't like you. Obviously not. It is totally with the right intentions, but it really is weirdly destructive. And I can tell you, I mean, and that's a good test. I mean, I would recommend anyone who can, I don't know how that would work. If you go on a trip or something, don't bring a bag full of toys. Try one toy. And I guarantee you, because I've seen it, I think you'll be amazed, and you'll see that, wow, they really play nicely there. We had that the other day. I had to clean one of the apartments upstairs, and he had one car and she had one little tractor, and that was it. There was nothing to distract them, and they played like, I don't even know what they were doing. They were laughing the whole time, and they come back downstairs where there are more toys, probably too many. I'll admit it, probably too many toys. And they just start fighting immediately over, guess what? The toys. like immediately. It's amazing. So it's like, it's not even just, there's so many things that toys that go wrong with it. They fight over them all the time. They make a mess, and they actually affect them psychologically. When they have too many choices, it actually makes them upset.
Yep. It makes them upset, and it makes them overwhelmed where they don't even want to pick any of the toys. And so then they truly are just defeating the purpose. So I feel like looking back at, some recent history, the past few decades, I feel like our generation does have it like the worst. Like, we are victims of such commercialism. And so that is why we continue to buy into it. Our kids are seeing the commercials. They're getting the little Amazon magazines in the mail. And so we're buying these things because these very, very smart marketers behind these advertisements are good at their job, and they pitch an experience. They pitch, your kid will be happier with this. They pitch, the commercial has all this family bonding time, when really it's, typically going to end in like fights and screams and yells, and then mom getting frustrated that there's a big mess that no one's helping her clean. It's like, the reality of it, you just have to check yourself and before every single purchase. And as far as the history, like I was saying, I feel like we have it the worst, but we're going into what will hopefully be a generation of moms and dads doing it better, because now we have all this minimalism, decluttering. So I have a sister who's 6 years younger than me, and she has a daughter who is 2. And she doesn't know I was going to be talking about her, but anyhow, she moved far away from all of us. So they kind of like started with nothing. And she very, maybe intentionally, maybe just finances, but she has very few things. Like, her daughter has very few toys. And sometimes I send her, I'm like, oh, look at these little figurines, Christmas. And I even catch myself like sending these new ideas. And she goes, no, Rosie, you don't understand. She makes anything a toy. And she sends me these videos. They were at a thrift store, it looked like. And there were these loose beads that had fallen off of a jewelry stand. And her daughter was like, oh, mommy, don't leave me. And she was playing with the beads as people. And I remember doing that as a kid. My sister and I played with toothbrushes as people. And so I'm just like, we don't need all these things. And our imagination, our children's imaginations, which is so important for them for all of their life, to have that imagination challenged and used, their imagination is stifled when they have all these things. So looking at open-ended toys, if anything, or toys that are going to encourage movement. We're looking at like a gymnastics bar that folds up nicely into the corner of the room. Things like that for Christmas, not just more junk that is going to break, even though they're so excited about it. But it's really retraining your kids' mindsets as well. And lucky for me, probably only my oldest is already at that point where she's used to like, oh yeah, Christmas means you get new things, birthday means you get new things. And I'm trying to start to reframe all of that and trying to start to just teach those principles when we are going through and cleaning a room. And if she's getting frustrated that it's taking too long to clean, it's just always a very open conversation. I don't make it naggy or demeaning, but simply, well, maybe it's time that we look at all this and see what we no longer need and can give away to someone who will enjoy it more, because all it's doing is causing us to have to spend more time picking up. And now that's less time I can spend, drawing with you or whatever we're trying to do after we clean up. And so they start to see it that way. And it just really, becomes a family effort, and everyone can start to have the same perspective on it, ideally. And it's just an ongoing thing. It's never like, okay, you're going to declutter one time and then you're done. It's definitely an ongoing mindset, because you're constantly getting new things into the home. Your kids are constantly changing in their stages of what they can reach and what they get into. We have purged so many like arts and crafts stuff, because I used to think we needed it all. And especially now that we're homeschooling, and now I've gotten rid of so much because they just pull everything out. They think drawing time means all the markers and all the color pencils and all the crayons and all the scissors and all the paper and all the things. And then it's just a disaster. And then they leave it because they're overwhelmed by the disaster. Whereas if I say, here's a paper and a crayon, they'll draw longer with that than with having a million options to choose from.
It's so true. And I think it's funny. It's with children and with adults that if there are, as you said, there are a few things. If they have a favorite toy, a doll or something, you don't want to just take that, of course. It's the same with us. As you said, there are some things that you do just say, hey, no, that's going to stay, and it should, even though it doesn't have a purpose. But it's amazing, this thing that, so you had this course, which I don't know, are you still doing? I guess I'll ask you that in a second. You answer that in a second if you're still doing the course. But my wife did it, I don't know, a year ago now, or a year and a half. It's been a while. And so she did this course with you about minimalism and kind of having these ideas and talking them through. And and I remember she was cleaning out the kitchen. So she's going through the cupboard, cleaning out the cups and whatnot. We put them all out on the table, and it was just like, how do we have so many cups? It's like literally coffee cups. Like, there's two of us, two adults. Why do we have like 30 coffee cups? And we're kind of like looking through them, like, okay, the first go around, like, okay, but we like those. Well, those ones came from, and we got this one here, and that one's so nice, and I like how that one, the grip of that one, but then eventually, and I had to take credit for this one. I was better at that side of just like, okay, no, honey, we're just gonna, all of these are gonna go, and we got rid of almost all of them. I think we kept two. We kept our two favorite cups. I kept one, she kept one. We got a set that looks nice to go together, and we just got rid of all the other ones. And I've never thought again about those cups. Like in my mind, I'm like, but I'm gonna, put those cups, like that's that cup and that cup. What am I gonna do if I can't drink from that cup? And it's like, now that I'm talking about it, it's like I never once again thought about the cups. It's so funny how we think we're so connected to these things, and some things we are. Again, I understand that some things we are connected to, but so few. It's really so few. There's so many things. It's like you get rid of, and a week later you're like, oh yeah, I had that thing. It really, I think you'll surprise yourself if you start just kind of, okay, if I have 30 coffee cups, do I really need to? And I think this is an amazing thing too. If you really minimalize, and you said for a bit there, we only had 2 coffee cups, which was good. Now we have, I think, 8, which is, maybe that's too many. But anyway, so we had 2 for a while, and it was actually great because it made you actually think, okay, I'm going to drink from it, and then I'm going to wash it, and I'm going to put it away because I know that that's the only cup. And it really is. It's an amazing like little thing. And I can tell you, just that cup, that situation made my wife so happy when it was done. She was just like, I can't believe, it looks so much better and cleaner, and my mind's so free. I only know I have 1 cup, and I'm going to clean it. And it was incredible. It really was. I think she would say it was legitimately. I think that, so props to you for that. I think that a lot of that goes to you and to your class, and I think that it really did improve her life. I'm not kidding. And I know, again, everyone hears the word minimalism, and some people just don't like it, but it's not just about, hey, let's go and tear down the things on your, it's not, take down all the pictures and stuff. I think there's different levels to it. But boy, if you can just, start it, start, thinking about, you don't need 30 coffee cups, man. I tell you, it really can change things. And I guess, and I'll segue that into the question, if you're still running these courses or whatnot on Crunchy Catholic.
Yeah, so the course that you're referring to is called Happy Holy Home. And I put that together kind of shortly after like my rabbit hole that I mentioned after my 3rd kid, when I just said our home is too much to maintain. We have too many things. And when I started to declutter, then I found myself with the time freed up to actually clean the home in the way that I wanted to clean it. It wasn't even so much that I went into it with a decluttering mindset. It was more so like, I need to implement some kind of routine for cleaning, some kind of schedule for the chores, some kind of system for the laundry, etc. And none of that could happen until I first decluttered. So decluttering is part of the course, but it's actually only the first part of it. Then the rest of it is like implementing, systems in your home, implementing a schedule for the cleaning, implementing meal planning, all that stuff. So I'm actually doing.
I'm sorry, I have to, real quickly. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you because Ina still goes through these programs every night, and it kind of drives me a little bit crazy because she has like lists for lists, and it's like, is this another thing from Rosie? It's like, come on, come on, enough of your lists. It's so funny. She has like a list. She has like these folders of here's a list and here's another list, but it does. It really helps her. But I'm sorry, I just had to comment on that. But
no, that's okay. Continue. It's funny. Hey, you can't knock it until you try it, and you said it works for her, so don't hate me.
I couldn't do it, but she loves it.
So the course Happy Holy Home is actually doing like a re-release at the very beginning of the year, because it is something that is kind of ongoing. Like I feel like people always, even if they've already gone through it, it's always good to go through as a refresher. But the reason for the re-release is actually just because I'm moving where it's hosted. I'm trying to make it easier for people because 99% of the time, this is what we're doing. We're on our phone. And, you know, whether we're nursing our baby or we're checking things before bed, I'm actually moving the course to be very like computer geared to now be very mobile geared, and where you can literally go through all the steps on the phone, where it's like, check that off, next module, check that off, next module.
Wow.
So what I'm offering for people now is like a declutter challenge for December. So if they go to thecrunchycatholic.com/declutter, I have a couple of options. There's a free download, which is just like my declutter download, which is going to give you some tips on how to get started with decluttering your home. Or there's like a 15-day challenge, which I'm doing through December. So it's December 2nd to the 20th. It just goes 5 days, 5 days, 5 days. And it's just going to send to your phone like 15 different ideas of areas to declutter. And then, of course, at the end of it, it might pitch like, hey, if that was great, then you'll love Happy Holy Home. Because truly, this is such a good time of year for people to declutter. We're about to get new things into our home for Christmas, or even if we're not, we're all about, you know, New Year's resolutions. And I think one of the biggest things is actually to just own less and have a home that is easier to maintain, which is why the timing for Happy Holy Home re-releasing for the new year, it's at special pricing right now. That is going to be a perfect time for people to reach those New Year's resolutions, is by having a clutter-free home and things that are easier to maintain. So my tip, you asked this a while back and then we got on a million segues, but my tip for someone who is just like, this is so daunting, this is so overwhelming, how am I supposed to have the time to declutter when the clutter itself is robbing me of my time? It's kind of like a catch-22 where you're like, I'm constantly picking up my house because it's cluttered and you're asking me to spend more time decluttering. So aside from the whole, it's an investment because sometimes it's still too much, it's still too overwhelming to get started. My tip for someone would to just be to spend 15 minutes a day decluttering. And that's going to do two things for you. One, you're setting a timer and you're looking at it and just saying, I'm going to do as much as I can in one area. Maybe it's the front closet. Maybe it's your clothes closet. Maybe it's the kids' toy box or the kids' clothes closet or the kitchen Tupperware drawer. There's all these different areas and you're setting a timer, and it's nice because you're looking at it saying, this isn't going to take long. It's going to take exactly 15 minutes. And whatever I get done, and then I stop. And the second thing it might do is you're going to start to get all those little dopamine rushes because it feels really good to organize and get rid of things. The timer might go off and you might say, I'm going to keep going because my kids are being good and this feels really good. And then by the end of the, you know, in this case of the challenge, the 15 days of 15 minutes, so 15 minutes times 15 days, you've got like a 4-hour chunk overall of decluttering. You're going to have so many things that you just got rid of from your home. And you can't fall into the trap of just reorganizing it because it's just going to get messy again. It's just going to get cluttered again if you're not actually getting rid of things. So that was my tip that I put down was to start small, the 15-minute chunks, the mindset, listening to those resources that I mentioned, the Hunt, Gather, Parent book, the Minimalists, the two guys, the Maximized Minimalist, the woman who's a mom who has a podcast, to start small and have someone holding you accountable is huge. So whether you're doing it with a friend or just telling your spouse or just telling your kids, which is why the free printout that I have on my website is nice because you can hang it up on the fridge, hang it up for everyone to see. And you say, yeah, every single day we're doing 15 minutes and every single day there better be things that are either going in the garbage or going to the Goodwill or, you know, going to someone else. And that's where you need to be careful. Some people say, oh, but it's worth money. I got to resell it. I got to wait for the right person to give it to. You don't want to pass on your clutter to someone else.
Yeah.
So if it's something that wasn't worth you keeping, and, you know, of course, that's not always the case. Maybe it's something your kid grew out of, but it's a great quality toy that someone, it goes without saying, you got to just check yourself with each situation. But for the most part, I find I just have to get it out of my house as quickly as possible or I'm going to second guess it. So it's either going in the garbage because it's broken or literal garbage, or it's going to the Goodwill. And I try to take it within a couple of days because if it sits in my car, I'm going to second guess it. And every time you drive, you're like, that's still back there. And it's still taking up the mental clutter, even though you already took it out of your home and it's still weighing you down.
Yeah, and I guess my advice after also having experienced it a little bit is to take one thing like the coffee cups and do an extreme, like do a real, like go from 30 to 2. Because I think as Rosie says, it really will, you'll get that dopamine of like, whoa, okay, and this is possible. Like, okay, I can live without 30 cups, and I think whatever it is, I mean, again, maybe it's your clothes, or I mean, I don't know if it matters, but I think if you really try it and really go really hard on it, really say we're gonna just get rid of almost everything, I think you'll be pretty amazed. You're gonna be pretty amazed, just first of all, how many things you don't need or use, and you keep them for dumb reasons. Again, like the cups is the one that always comes to my mind, because it's just like, why did we keep so many of these cups? And you get rid of them again, and it just doesn't. They're gone. It's like, wow, that's really nice, and we didn't need them, and now it's better, and now the cabinet is cleaner, and my mind is better, and weirdly, I don't have as many things to choose from. And it's something that, again, I mentioned many times on this podcast with many different areas. I think education is the big one, higher education, so university and stuff, that we have too many choices, too many decisions. Our brains also, adults too. It's not just children. I think we're not meant to have to pick from so many things. So you go to a university and they say, okay, you can study from these 1,000 curriculums. It's like, okay, throw a dart, I guess, and I think back in the day, it was like, okay, I'm going to be a soldier, a farmer, or a priest, and that was about it. You just, and I think they had happy lives. Maybe they died sooner and stuff because of whatever, but I think that was a simpler time. And I think that if we can affect that in any way and make our lives simpler, I think choosing between 2 coffee cups and 30, it sounds really, really silly. I'm telling you, I can really say from experience, it actually makes a difference. It really does. Crazy.
No, you're absolutely right. And actually, I love the coffee cup example because it seriously applies to everything. Like, we try to own, like 1 coat per person, 1 whatever per person. Like, if you don't need multiple, then owning multiple is just taking up more space in your home and in your mind. And to the decision thing, I don't remember who it was. I heard this from some like big motivational speaker podcast or something, who did have a statistic for how much it weighs down our mind to make decisions all day, even if it's something so insignificant, like what coffee mug to pick, what to wear. I think when they gave this statistic, they shared that like really important people in the world, like the president, doesn't pick what to wear, like it's put out for him by his assistants or whatever, because he has enough important decisions to make later in the day. He doesn't need to worry about what to wear. And it sounds so insignificant, like what to wear, that should be easy to decide, but one decision after another all day long. And it's no wonder we feel this way, and it's no wonder it's so freeing to just get rid of the opportunity altogether to have to make a decision. And we did the same thing with our coffee mugs. We had so many. And actually, it's funny because that was something I was trying to hold on to. And my husband was like, this is too many.
It was the same with us. Yeah. I was like, okay, no, come on.
Yeah.
And so I finally, it looks so nice. It's just like, come on.
I know.
But it's the same. I had the same experience with a suit coat. I used to have, 5 pairs of church clothes, or 5 church pants, 5 church shirts, 5 ties, etc. And I hated it, and I didn't take care of it, and it again, it's silly, but it really was a problem. So I went and I spent a lot of money on 1 suit coat, and I got I got 2 ties, I got 3 shirts, but I know that's what I'm going to wear, and it really is. It's just like, it's really freeing, and it looks nice, and it saves space, and it is just better. And I can't say that for me I can do that with everything. I come from a mother who is very much a Irish pub, wall type of a person, if that makes sense. And I am too. But I can say from experience, boy, some of these things, it really will free your mind. And the one with the toys too, and that's the one that I think, if you really think of these things for your children, what they need and what you can do to help them and yourself with these, I really think this is one of the most important topics of our time, in terms of just how we live as a family. Obviously, of course, faith is first. Of course, how you treat each other with love and respect. Of course, those come first. So I'm not saying it's above those, but just in practical ways of bettering your family life, it's pretty amazing. It really is.
Absolutely. It's huge. And I think, to someone who is really caught up on the sentimental of like, oh, but we got this mug from so-and-so, or we got this from so-and-so. I think a huge question that I would pose to them, and I ask myself this with like everything that I'm looking at getting rid of or not, is ask yourself, okay, it may be in the home now, I may own it now, but if I didn't, and this was something like at a thrift store, or that someone was trying to give me and said, hey, do you want this? Like, would I say yes? Because most likely the answer is no. And it's just so hard for us to get rid of things. But if you flip it and say, if I didn't own this, would my life be lacking in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah.
And it's usually like, no, it wouldn't. So then just get rid of it. And then once you take on the habit and the mindset, it's really cool, because then like the subcategories of things to declutter. So my example being Play-Doh. Play-Doh was a thing for us where my 4-year-old, he's very into the sensory stuff. And if you don't give it to him, he's bouncing off the walls. And so whether it's, running outside or having something sensory, like he needs these things all the time. And I was always telling him no to Play-Doh, because our Play-Doh box had like a gazillion gadgets, the pizza maker, the shake maker, the this piece and that piece. And it was like 100 little tiny things, and then random Play-Doh. And so one day I just said, you know what, scratch that. And I bought a new box of like the little 8-pack of Play-Dohs, and I gave it to him with a little container of toothpicks from our kitchen cupboard. And he played with it for hours, because it wasn't all the Play-Doh toys and gadgets. And I wasn't overwhelmed by having to be like, where do these all go? I got to shove the Play-Doh out before I put it away. Just ridiculousness. And so thinking this way, you start to see it in every area of your life, where I'm like, okay, I'm depriving my son of Play-Doh. Play-Doh is like a staple of childhood. I'm like, I'm depriving him of Play-Doh because of my own overwhelm of even thinking about getting it out, or even thinking about cleaning it, when you know what, he would be happy with just the Play-Doh itself. He doesn't need all the gizmos and gadgets. He just wants the Play-Doh. And that's usually the case for like everything. We just got to get out of the mindset of this crazy commercialism trying to take over our lives.
Amen to that. And I think that that's probably a good way to start wrapping it up. If you want to go and check out more of the material at thecrunchycatholic.com, again, she's got stuff going in December and January. And I really can attest to it. Really, really, very sincerely. I don't just say that lightly. It really does work. My wife, if she was here, she would tell you as well. She's a big fan. Life-changing stuff. It really is. Please, if you like this podcast, comment, subscribe, share it with someone who it might help. And again, it's not like, oh, I know someone whose house is a mess, so here's this video. I mean, share it with all of your mom friends. I mean, really, even the ones, because I really think it really is a game changer. It really is. I really think it. And again, as Rosie said, if you get on top of things, then everything, because you just have more time. You're happier. You walk around with a lighter step. You pray more. It really does, bizarrely almost, help. It doesn't fix everything, of course, but boy, I tell you, it does help with the time. It helps free your mind. It's good stuff. So definitely go crunchycatholic.com. Rosie, I'll leave you with the last words. I don't know if you want to give an elevator pitch or whatever. If we missed anything, then I'll let you wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, it's so fitting that, your wife went through the course and had such good success with it. It's a course that I really, poured my heart into, and I really firmly believe that it can help any mom in, I don't want to say any season, because if her kids are grown and gone, maybe she doesn't need it, but mostly to the mom of littles, just trying to navigate like how to maintain a home. And I know it sounds so like not shallow, but it sounds like when you say life-changing and we're talking about decluttering, it sounds like, well, that's a little bit dramatic,
Sure.
but it truly is. Like you said, it allows time and space and mental capacity for the things that are life-changing. And so the clutter is a hindrance to the things that are life-changing, which is why decluttering can be life-changing. And so with this course and, with the little freebie of the declutter downloads, it's something that I think anyone can utilize. And when Ina went through it, she really went through it. There's people who have bought it and then not followed through and not taken it, not continued to day 2 of the challenges, because again, in our mind, we just don't want to veer from the norm.
Yeah.
But the norm is not pleasant. And so, there's a quote that says, choose your hard. Like, you can stay in this, but it's hard to be constantly picking up and not having time for prayer and be constantly tired because you're always cleaning and always stressed. Or you can choose the hard of going through a major declutter, going through a major purge, going through implementing new systems and routines into your home to make it make more sense. And when I made the course, the reason it's called Happy Holy Home is because it really is, more conducive to a faith-rooted home. Our domestic church here in our homes, raising our kids to be saints, it doesn't coexist to have a super cluttered, chaotic home and to have a super, faith-based, everyone praying and, valuing God as number one. They can't coexist. It's hard. It's a clash. And that scripture verse that I said earlier on, it really just like supports and wraps around all of the ideas that we discussed today. So to whoever is feeling like they can't do it, you can do it. You can start small. I have resources for, wherever you are on the path. You can start small or you can dive into the course, and truly you will not regret it. It's the best thing you can do for you, your kids, and the best way that you can continue to serve God better.
Awesome. Rosie, until next time, God bless you. Everyone, thank you for watching. And again, go check it out, thecrunchycatholic.com.